What's going on, guys? I'm going to be talking about cellular rejuvenation today, and I'm excited because I've got a couple tips for you on 5 different categories that can help your cells be in an optimal state and help you age slower. So, with that being said, number one is mitochondria. Mitochondria is king, and mitochondria is basically the energy, the powerhouse of your cells. It's an organism, that organelle that is inside the cells, every one of our cells, and helps us produce ATP, which is the currency of energy. It's super important to make sure your mitochondria is healthy, and that means that you're aging slower, and abundant, that means that you're more energized. And so, if you don't have these things, we will definitely have a progressed, aging process. So, what are some things that we want to know that can help with that? Well, one of the things is exercise. One of the most excellent things that we can do for our mitochondrial health, and specifically zone 2 exercise. Zone 2 exercise is one of 5 zones of exercise that experts typically refer to. And think of zone 2 as when you're taking a brisk walk and you're not quite sure out of breath, but you can kind of feel it. You can have a full on conversation, but you're not leisurely walking. Think of going up the steps, not too fast that you're completely gassed, but you're slow enough that you can kind of feel it, but then you can have a conversation. So it's about 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. So if you are trying to calculate that, it's about 220 minus your age, and that's your max heart rate. And then you take 60% of that, and that is zone 2. And so that's a great way to activate mitochondria and helps them produce more ATP. Number 2 is red light therapy. Red light therapy is something that's been used, or biomodulation as the main bigger category, if you will. And it's been used to help with cellular rejuvenation, optimizing collagen in the skin, helping the skin heal and scar improvement. But from a cellular perspective, it actually helps the mitochondria produce better ATP and improve their function. And another one is creatine. Creatine has become really popular over the past decades, and most people think of it as what helps with muscle production and muscle optimization. And it now recently has been in the news for helping cognitive health, and supplementing it has been helpful. And there is also evidence that it can actually help mitochondrial function and energy production in the cells. So, another thing that can optimize our mitochondria. So, number one, mitochondria is king. 2, we're going to be talking about autophagy. Autophagy is a fancy word for cleaning of the cells. So, think of spring cleaning. When it's, once a year, you decide to get rid of things that are not serving you, and optimizing the space, getting the clutter out. So, well, the cells do the same thing. And if we give them the opportunity, the space, the time, they will want to do that so they can be more efficient. So, think of a cluttered room. You can't function and use it as properly as you would like, but if it's organized, if it's clean, then you feel great. So, the cells do this. And, I say if you don't use it, get rid of it, kind of a concept. And so, people go through their, closet, look and see what they have not worn for, like, let's say 12 months, 3 months, 6 months, and they give it away. They donate it, or replace it. So number one tool to optimize this is intermittent fasting. So a window that's closer than what your typical eating window is. So some people stay fasted for 12 to 16 hours. They've shown, actually, if you're hitting that 16-hour mark of not eating anything, that you're actually reducing even breast cancer. So there's a lot of benefits to it, not just longevity, but also reduction of cancer and optimization of metabolic health. And so the window of eating is really important. Another thing is snacking. I am guilty. I'm a big snacker. Anything crunchy, send it my way. Just kidding. Please don't. I cannot keep up. So I love crunchy snacks. So trying to find clean ones, chickpeas, or garlic, roasted garlics, nuts, and other things. But while that's great, and there's a good potentially protein-rich sources of nutrients, if you're constantly snacking and you're eating, you're actually not letting your cells recover. That autophagy happens when the cells are not dealing with all this extra sugar coming in, and They have to deal with, other processes. So think of your sleep. If you're doing other things and you're not sleeping, you can't get rid of certain, cellular toxins and rejuvenate, recover. And so reducing snacking would be really important. Another one is a really heavy duty, high intensity interval workout or training or hit, a peak one ideally once a week. This really pushes the cells to kind of get ready and reboot and helps you clean out house a bit more effectively. So if you don't use it, get rid of it kind of concept is autophagy. And the third, hormesis. Hormesis is basically the concept of controlled in small doses stress that is put on the body, in this case cells, to kind of help them become resilient. And it's kind of, it doesn't, if something doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger at age, but also, working out would be an example of that. So, you work out, you want to build your muscle. Well, if you're working out too strong, too heavy of a weight, then you've gone too far. Now you're breaking something, you're hurting something. And I have a rotator cuff injury, so totally understand. Working with a lovely physical therapist now to kind of heal that. But it's something that, you don't want to go overboard on. So hormesis is something that we really would utilize to optimize body's ability to be agile, to be resilient, but we don't want to go overboard. So a good example of that is cold plunge. Cold plunge is fantastic for getting the mitochondria, the energy production powerhouse of the cells, to be more on and produce more energy. And it gives you a kind of a aliveness, a wakefulness, because your norepinephrine neurotransmitters are released, and actually you feel more energetic without the jitteriness. So it's kind of like a cup of coffee without you actually getting jittery after having it and feeling all the caffeine. But if you stay in the cold plunge too long, you can get risk of hypothermia and other things. And so the opposite is true too. Sauna is a great place for using your heat shock proteins that helps the cells recover, clean out, rejuvenate. But also a great source of detoxing as long as you're hydrated. But if you stay in there too long, you will run the risk of hyperthermia and getting dehydrated, passing out, things like that. So you got to be mindful. Third item on the list to help with hormesis or mild stresses is breath work. So breath work is huge. We have a lot of amazing breathwork practitioners that we've worked with in the past. Shout out to Brady. And this is something that will help our sympathetics calm down, activates our vagal tone and vagal nerve, and raises your parasympathetics. There's different styles of breathwork, obviously, some activating more, others more calming, but there is a massive connection between your gut, your nervous system, and your ability to optimize, oxygenate, but then calm the nervous system. Because you're breathing in and you're oxygenating your system, it can have a little bit of a stress and overexposure to oxygen, and that would help reduce the amount of radicals, unstable molecules that are the contributors to disease and aging. And with that being said, our number 4th item on that list is oxidation and inflammation. So optimizing that would be important because that is the source of aging. And think of oxidation and radicals as basically like a nagging ache that just exhausts you or your cells. It's not intense, it's not something breaking, but it's in a low level, chronic irritation and nag that will eventually exhaust the cells. So this is something we definitely want to reduce or optimize. And some good ways of doing this is to optimize your sleep. Sleep is huge, and we talked about that actually being important for rejuvenation and recovery. So it starts with the basics, and sleep is as foundational as it gets. Another one would be reducing environmental toxins. So we're getting exposed to all sorts of stuff, whether it's cleaning solvents, fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, heavy metals, chemicals of toxins of all sorts of things. We want to reduce that. Those are toxins that create low-level strain and nag on your cells and makes them have a hard time recovering. Um, Another example of ways to be able to optimize your oxidation and reduce the amount of stress and inflammation would be certain nutrients. If you are deficient in these, we want to optimize them and replenish them. So omega-3 fish oils, for example, is great. Turmeric, green tea, chia, flax, and there are certain other nutrients like supplements like glutathione and CoQ10 that can be used to optimize that. So supplementing these would help with that. Optimizing your nutrition, a lot of times starting with a protein-rich diet and making sure that you're actually having a meal that has decent amount of protein grams in it really helps that keep the cellular function steady, but then also going for a walk. Italians have a particular say for that. Passeggiata, I believe. Forgive me if you're Italian and I butchered that, but that really helps to kind of keep the metabolic health of the cell steady and reduce the amount of chronic nag and amount of oxidation, inflammation that's inside the cells. So we want to optimize that. And fifth is tolerance of your immune cells. So if your immune cells are functioning, ideally they don't function overly reactive to things, and they're not weak and underreactive. So good example of an overreactive immune cell would create allergies, autoimmune conditions, sensitivities, and an underreactive or underactive immune cell would cause all sorts of things like fatigue, like infections, or even cancers. So we want to keep it in that perfect balance. And there are a lot of things that are called adaptogens, whether they're mushrooms or other herbs, really helps the immune cells to kind of function that mid-range, to be nimble, but not be overreactive to certain things, be tolerant of self, and not attack our own cells, if that makes sense. And so basically think of the immune modulation and tolerance as your surveillance. It's basically keeping an eye on the body, on the cells, and it's getting rid of things that are not good, and it's being tolerant to things that are itself. So it does not want to attack itself. So, for example, one of the things that could really help us would be to reduce stress. Chronic stress is directly linked by studies to reduced immune function. And with that being said, it's no surprise that during the holidays, or if you're stressed at work, or if you've got a deadline, you're more likely to come down with an illness. Now, it's probably not related to you being exposed to an infection, likely, because we're exposed to viruses and microbes all the time. And it's probably because the immune function has taken a dive, and now it's not functioning as well, and now you're getting sick. And so we are pretty resilient, but we need to optimize and respond to the stressors and cope with them. And a great way, again, is breath work, meditation. And so breath work is really nice because, again, it reduces the amount of sympathetic drive and calms the nervous system and engages in your parasympathetics and the vagal nervous system to calm the stress, if you will. Another one would be your gut. So we talked about the nervous system connection with the gut. So your microbiome balance is so huge. We replenish the gut with prebiotics, the microbes' food, with probiotics, the actual microbes that we find deficient or supportive of our goals and what we need to optimize. And then postbiotics, things that the microbes produce that are actually supportive of the function of the immune system in the gut or the gut lining or whatnot, or helping the cells and the barriers in the gut. So your gut feeling, that's actually something very important to pay attention to. A lot of times, certain emotions, certain stressors start from within the gut. And I think it's very important to listen to your body, because a lot of times it's telling you something that is truly either good for you or not good. A lot of times we feel somatically what is actually good or not good for us. So I would say pay attention and listen to your body. And last, nutrients. A lot of nutrients are very important to optimize our ability of immune system to function and help modulate so it doesn't overreact to certain things and does not act weak and underreact. And hands down, the most researched, the most fairly safe and well loved supplement is vitamin D. Vitamin D has been touted as, such an important vitamin that it almost acts like a hormone. So there you have it. You've got 5 different reasons and ways or categories to optimize to get a better cellular rejuvenation, ideally slow aging and improve energy. And so just to get a recap of these, mitochondria is number 1. Mitochondria is king. Autophagy is number 2. That spring cleaning of the cells or spring cleaning of your house. Hormesis, a little bit of a stress that is just enough to kind of get your cells, perked up. What doesn't kill you, makes you stronger concept. Cellular oxidation and inflammation that we need to optimize. Things that are stressful, we want to get rid of that nagging, slow ache that makes the cells exhausted. And 5th and final, and not the least of them all, is immune modulation. So keep the immune system nimble, not overreactive, not under, just right. And with that, I hope you a long life, health span, and talk to you soon.